Today, I'll be doing a gaming overview of 2022 for me personally. This is a tier list I have done in 2021 where I ranked all the games I have played that year. This is going to be a very similar video to that, in which I will be going over a bunch of these games that I have played over in 2022. I have made the majority of them into reviews, and I have pretty much enjoyed some, not so much, some hate some of them, but this is why this video exists, to give myself an overview of the whole games that I have played in 2022. A lot of them are cult classics. You probably have never heard of half of these games before. Some of these are newer games like Bayonetta 3, Splatoon 3, Fire Emblem Warriors, and remember Strangers of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins? Of course you haven't. But let's start off with 2022 as a whole. 2022 was just an average year for me. It pretty much didn't really do much for me. Of course, I had my small little addictions here and there with certain properties like Chuck E. Cheese, Evangelion. I don't know if the show Arthur counts. Maybe it showed in some of my YTPs I have made. But yeah, overall, it was just been an average year. Trips here and there. College has been a shit show. But I'm probably going to pass the majority of my classes, so that's a good thing. And the biggest factor into this year, besides the YTPs of course, is gaming. And I have played several of these games before. And let me go over the categories here so you know what to expect. We have the watermark. This is just for the watermark version of the thing. World class gaming. These are the best games I have ever played, and these are inspiring, the genre defining experience that you'll be looking for in a video game, and the best in the series. The greatest games I have played in this year as a whole. Quality experiences. These are great games I highly recommend, but they aren't for everyone, and there are some issues I can have with the game as a whole. Above average. These are just good games for what they are, but they have some major issues that keep them from being higher. Average. These are the most average games I have ever played. Like, I could have cared less about them. Below average. Major issues with these games. Like, these are just not good games, honestly. They could have been much better, but they just ended up being generic and boring, maybe stupid, and that's why it ended up here. Fuck you. I hate you with a burning passion. You have so much issues. You have so much issues. You have so much issues. Mentally unable to beat you. There are 3 games in this category that I would love to talk about. And there is one in particular that is in this list that is going to come up very soon. So please hold your horses. And with that out of the way, let's look at all these games and rank them from the best to the worst. All the games I have played in 2022. Let's start off with the first game, Monster Hunter Rise. Honestly, it's pretty average. I'm not saying the game is bad, and I understand that the game has a dedicated community and fandom, and that's totally fine. I'm accepting of all of that type of people. And opinions are opinions at the end of the day. Honestly, I just felt like it could have been better. It felt pretty slow, janky at sometimes. I couldn't really understand how it fundamentally works sometimes. And after the Magnolia fight, I just stopped caring. But for what it is, it's fine. Next up is Kirby Star Allies. This is a quality game. This is a great game. Like, this is a replay of a game I played in 2018 when it first came out. It still felt magical. I love the soundtrack. It's one of the best soundtracks in gaming. I love the simplicity to it. It can have some bullshit moments here and there, but I don't think it's that much of a deal. It's a Kirby game. You know what to expect. It's an easy little game for kids and people who are getting into gaming. So this is a great game to start off with in your gaming backlog, if I recommend correctly. This game is freaking amazing and I love it. Next up is Senran Kagura Burst Renewal. I got this game at PAX East. It had like a collector's edition with CDs and like these like foamy like standees and like or you can make them into keychains. And it's just some stupid Warriors game that tries to be like an arena battle game, but I think it's below average. It doesn't do anything for me. Like, it really hasn't. It's just sluggish, janky. It felt clunky to control. This game fucking sucks as a whole. It's not the worst thing in the world. I still have 2 categories I could have put in lower, but it just doesn't work for me. We got one of the first games that are in this category, Dicey Dungeons. It's the more recent one of the bunch, but I think I was much more calm with this one compared to like the two other ones, because this game in particular I couldn't get myself into because it's like a roguelike experience. I couldn't feel like I'm getting a whole lot of progress out of the game because of how it was set up. And I mean, if you want to play this, you can. I understand there's like a target audience for this type of stuff, and I'm glad that for the people who enjoy this, but honestly, I couldn't really get my feet into this game because it just felt annoying every time I died and stuff. And by the way, I got this for pretty cheap on the Nintendo eShop, so that is like something there. I just couldn't get past it. But cool art style though, so that's not enough to save this game, honestly. But then we got to one of the first world-class gaming games, Final Fantasy VII. One of the best games in this category. I know this game came out in 1997, but the newer releases now include options for better accessibility for people, and I'm really happy about that because God mode in this game is a great thing to have. Like for people who are new to the game or just don't want to grind, they have so many options for you to just play the game at your own pace, whether you want to play it the original way or you want certain options on and off. It's really, it does help with the experience a lot, and I really appreciate it. And another factor is that this game is an iconic game in the RPG landscape. It is the most influential game of the bunch besides Pokemon, and it's the real reason why Final Fantasy became popular in the West and around the world. Without this game, RPGs probably wouldn't have been that popular. And I'm really happy that I managed to beat this game on the Nintendo Switch with great story, great characters, great combat system. It's a great game for what it's worth. And this is a must for any person who is planning to play RPGs or are already into RPGs. This game is a genre defining game that helps build the foundation for RPGs to come. And I'm glad that this game is one of the best games I have played this year. But next up, we have the original Uncharted game, which is Uncharted Drake's Fortune, I think it was. It's above average as a game. You know what? I'm going to change my mind. I think it's like average. Like, it was the first Uncharted game, but it has like moments where it felt like it had little identity, where it wanted to be a platformer at some points. It had the majority of the sections be third-person shooter sections. And there were some moments like I believe the jet ski missions that felt like, don't care for. There were also a bunch of other stuff that just don't flesh well with me. I will give it credit for being the beginning of the Uncharted series, that it becomes one of PlayStation's most valuable franchises, and I can appreciate it for what it's worth. But honestly, compared to the other two games that I played this year, Uncharted 2 and 3, yeah, I think this is probably the weakest game of the bunch. Another game I will be putting in this list is Little Big Planet 3, the next game that is mentally unable to beat you because, oh God, I fucking hate this game. It had the most confusing platforming elements. Like, it doesn't have a good indication of when I died. It felt frustrating at points, especially with the final boss, which I couldn't even beat because it requires you to play as all these animal characters, and it just doesn't feel consistent. It's just going to and from there. It's just one big path, and if you can't do it, then fuck you. It's just a major roadblock for me. But also, the game just has several platforming moments that I just do not care for. And also in my review, I have mentioned that the game promotes stereotypes in some aspects in terms of voice acting, which I really fucking hate. It's stupid. But I will give it credit for its graphics and one song in particular that I would have never discovered if it wasn't for this game. And I think it was some 50s song or something. I'll probably put it up on screen or something. And then we got the best Uncharted game. Quality experience. It just brings the Uncharted series to a new level with brand new innovative platforming challenges that require you to go off the deep end and do more perspective work. It feels like you're on a top of the world sometimes. Things feel larger than life. You get to do third-person gunfights that feel like are over the top with its action sequence that really make them work so well. This game in particular does a lot for the series, and I think is the real reason why this series is continuing to go on these days, because this game set up the foundation for what Uncharted should be expecting to do. We do have another quality experience game coming up, and it's Vitamin Connection. You probably never heard of this game before. It's from Way Forward, the guys from River City Girls and the Shantae franchise. It's a fun little on-rail shooter featuring a unique art style and music that I can really appreciate. The presentation just is wonderful for this game, and I really love the art style. Best art style that I've seen for a video game. You would do like these mini games, which are kind of okay at best, but they do work for this type of game, and I can appreciate it. The only thing I can really say is the boss fight can feel lackluster and forced into, but I honestly don't care. This game is fucking great. I love this game. Next up is the most forgotten game of 2022, Strangers of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins. This game is above average. While it does feel generic in terms of its action RPG elements for a modern game, I do appreciate it for what it's going for. Like its standardized look, but also its comedic writing, and I believe being the introduction to the Final Fantasy world. Like a prequel to the overall Final Fantasy games, and I think it works for what it's worth. And it just feels weird at the end, I believe, with the main character Jack going into a villain mode or whatever that case may be. But I do think it works, and the humor is on point with us trying to kill and destroy chaos, and Jack and his friends are kind of cool people, but sometimes can be annoying, but it's fine. The only reason it's not higher is because it's somewhat forgettable and it doesn't really do that much to make it stand out. Next game we got is Lego City Undercover. I want to keep this short and quick. This is an average game. I thought this game was just an average Lego game where you just go around doing stuff for tokens that has its own unique style of humor, but it's too childish for my liking, for my understanding. So from what I've played, that. Another game I want to mention is Putt Putt. It's world-class gaming. It's fucking great. The art style, I understand it's originally made for the computers back then and it's very limited, but the movement, the way the graphics look, it is beautiful. I love the art style of this game. I wish I had an RPG with all my original characters that had a very similar art style and animation style. It would work really well for this type of game, and I want to see this type of game style more, honestly. It looks great. Another game I want to mention is Yakuza 3. I think it's the weakest Yakuza game of the bunch. It just doesn't do anything for me, and it was the first non-Kiwami game for me that really didn't, impact me. It just didn't. It's just there as a game, and I mean, it still has great writing and still a great Yakuza game in terms of story elements, but honestly, it just doesn't feel all that exciting anymore. The next game is a hot take, Kirby and the Forgotten Land. It's above average. It's not the best game in the world, and I understand a lot of people love this game. Again, opinions are opinions. Like, many of these opinions can be subjective, like maybe Kirby Star Allies, but Kirby and the Forgotten Land just felt like another Mario 3D world to me. It didn't really do all that much, but the post-game stuff was actually kind of pretty good, and I really appreciate it. But I hope they use the foundation from this game and just make a brand new game and try to make it its own without trying to be more of Mario 3D World. Next up is the first game I played in this batch of games, WarioWare Get It Together. So with WarioWare, it's just average. It's super short. It has some cool ideas for the mini-game stuff, but it's way too short for me to even give a shit. Teen Sonic Racing, another average game. Just a stupid little racing game that I could have cared less for. just felt like a platforming racing game that involves like a Care Bear, and you go and race, and with 3 characters you get to choose from, and you gotta make sure you win, and it's just boring as fuck. You know what? There's also these like challenge modes that I just couldn't care for, if I remember correctly. Next up, we got a couple of different world-class games. We got Guilty Gear Strive. This is a great game for what it is. I think this is the best fighting game of the current generation. It has its unique style. The characters feel like their own. Fighting feels fresh, and for newcomers, it felt amazing. And although I haven't tried the DLC characters, they all look great. But overall, great game. Yakuza Kiwami 2. If you told me several months ago, I probably would have put it in world-class gaming, but because of one particular Yakuza game, I'm just going to put it in quality experiences. This doesn't mean it's bad. It's a great Yakuza game. I mean, it's basically just Yakuza 0, but without the Goro Majime, and has more of the current today Kiryu Kazame. You have the cabaret clubs, which are pretty fun. You get to go to Osaka, which is kind of cool. Kamurocho's still the same. You get to meet all your favorite characters. You get to see Ryuji. You get to see all this fun stuff that you love in the Yakuza game. Next up, we got Fire Emblem Three Houses. This is the best game. Okay. Yeah. The best Nintendo Switch game on the market, and I will not take criticism for my pick here. 3 different routes of different characters and different storylines later down the line. You have a well-likable cast of characters to choose from and enjoy. That feels like you're a part of a story. You feel like these characters mean something to you. I've beaten this game twice, back early this year and then in the summer. Great game. And then we start with the one of 2 controversial games that I will be discussing, Panzer Dragoon. I want to put this in fuck you, because I honestly feel like this game, a generic on-rail shooter where you play as a dragon going through these generic landscapes, but then I heard people say, oh, it was like that in 1996, and it was one of the most revolutionary games for the Sega Saturn. Okay. But when I played this game, it didn't feel like anything major. It just felt like a higher graphically made resolution game for... It just... Honestly, this game just felt like a generic on-rail shooter. It doesn't really have a whole identity. It doesn't really feel like its own thing. And I'm sorry if I couldn't get attached to it. And I understand a lot of people hate this review for that reason alone, because I probably didn't mention that this game was made by a smaller team and, oh, I was expecting an open world dragon game where you get to fly around. That's not what I want. I just want this game to be a little bit more unique with its own presentation, and at least do something with it. Maybe add a multiplayer mode where 4 players go against each other and the last one standing is the winner or something. I think that would work well for something like this. But overall, I couldn't care less about this game. Then we get to a good Uncharted game, Uncharted 3. Above average. Well, it feels a little bit more difficult, and there were some moments I couldn't really care for. I think the last half of the game was pretty fun. I like several moments with like the shipyard, and then maybe like certain climbing sections, certain combat sections were pretty fun, albeit a little difficult. It's a fun little experience to go back and play again. Fire Emblem Warriors. While it's still a Warriors game, I believe I'll just put it in above average. You know what? No, quality experience. It's a quality game. While it be a generic Warriors game, they did the best they could to make it feel like a Fire Emblem Three Houses game, but with the Warriors combat system, but that switches around certain things to make it its own thing. And I can really appreciate it for trying to do that as a whole. Yakuza 4, another quality it's a quality experience. It's a great Yakuza game. You get 4 different playable characters. You get 4 different playable characters, several of which are new to the series. A lot of them are likable and memorable, but we're going to get to the best Yakuza game of the bunch. Yakuza 5 is the best Yakuza game of the bunch. The best Yakuza game I have played so far. It has a ton of content. Each character has its own little mini game. The combat is great. The transitions between the open world to battle is great. I think the story makes sense this time with dreams and stuff. I don't know what to put this game in. Is it below average or fuck you? It's Toe Jam and Earl back in the groove. I don't like this game. It's stupid. I'll probably put it in below average for now. I think it just does it. You know what? I think I'm going to change my mind. Sonic Race. I think Team Sonic Racing just goes below average. I just remember I had some major issues with the game. And Earl just doesn't feel like it knows what it wants to be. It just feels like a 2D open world game where it just has some random nonsense, which I can understand if that's what they're going for, but it just doesn't feel funny and just doesn't feel right. Controls feel wonky. It just doesn't blend together into a game. Artistically, it looks like something out of Nickelodeon, which I can appreciate, but and they had some cool looking music, and I think at the end they respected a rapper, and that's good, but honestly, I couldn't get into this game. It just doesn't feel right to me. Next up is the world famous Among Us. I don't like this game. It just doesn't. I don't understand why this is popular. Because all it is just catching an imposter or trying to survive one or try to get them removed and stuff. And I don't think it's fun at all because unless you're playing with friends, it just doesn't feel fun. And maybe that's why I haven't had a great time with this game. It's probably I didn't have fun with it. Bayonetta 3 is... I mean, compared to the other two, I think I like the other two more for what they are, but it's a great game for what it is, as it's a good little game for continuing the Bayonetta franchise. Splatoon 3, my most viewed gaming essay and the worst reception of the bunch because I said it was a waste of time. And you know what? I'm not going to blame anyone. It's my fault for saying it or probably try to make it more clickbaity or try to make it more of that. I understand that there's a dedicated community that loves this game, and don't get me wrong, you get to love whatever you want in life. If you find it fun, that's totally fine. In fact, I love the Splatoon franchise from the beginning when I first seen my sister play it. It just felt unique and it has its own characteristics. And Marie is the best female I have ever seen in my entire life, and she just is hot and still hot to this day. Splatoon 2 helped me get through a certain part of my life around summer 2018 where I basically was on limbo with going to do something for the summer, but ended up going to just assisting an art teacher, and in the afternoons I would go and play Splatoon 2 and maybe Fortnite. It was fun. And I think that Splatoon 3 is basically what it is. It's just a quality of life improvement of that game in particular. Instead of just making new content for that game over and over again and just add those improvements, this game just felt like it just made it its own new game with a new story and everything. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. The Splatoon devs can do whatever they want with the game, and I'm going to accept it for what it is. I ended up buying this game at the Nintendo store in New York City, and I would probably put it above average. It's good for what it is, and I can appreciate all the quality of life improvements. It's still Splatoon in the end of the day, which I can appreciate, but it didn't really impact me as an individual. And maybe I'll put Blaze Blue in. I probably said average for this game, and honestly, I can definitely see why I probably put it in like average because it didn't really do much. It's just a generic crossover with whatever anime property they had at the time with Under Night in Birth, Persona 4, Ruby, and their own original characters. And honestly, it just didn't felt all that interesting or tried to really introduce these characters to new people. All it did is just, oh, look at me, I'm awkward, or I'm so tough and I'm gonna do this. Why everything is like this? Oh my god, this game can get annoying sometimes, I think. But the story mode just doesn't feel like anything. It's just dialogue boxes in the end of the day. And one thing I can just say about this game is that whatever I played with the fighting mechanics, it just took me super quickly to beat. It didn't feel like there was any challenge at any given point. But for what it is, I think it's good for what it is. It's just that when I played it, it just didn't felt like much, and the story mode just cutscene after cutscene, and then you get to a fighting section, but it didn't feel long. it just didn't feel long. It just felt pretty quick, and then more story cutscenes and more story cutscenes and more story cutscenes, and you have to do other routes because the game wants to be more convoluted with one particular thing, and you have to do all dialogue options if you want to get the true ending. It's just a confusing and obnoxious mess sometimes with this game, and I can't understand it. Flippin' Death is a fun little game where you control souls and you control different other things. It's another obscure game I played, and honestly, it's kind of fun to do. I really like the combat. The writing feels pretty nice. Has a ton of sense of humor, which helps give it its own characteristics and humor, which I can appreciate. And you should definitely try this game. Unravel 2, it's the last technically beaten game of this year, and honestly, it's just average as hell. But let me tell you about the game that defines me as a person. Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 Platinum, or Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 Complete Edition. They're both technically the same game, so I decided to put both up here. This game is the best game I have ever played. Fire Emblem Heroes, I played it around Level 2. It's the only mobile game here that you can probably count Among Us, but I played this on Switch, so technically Fire Emblem Heroes is the only mobile game here. And honestly, I think it's above average. Now let's get to the last game of The Mentally Unable to Beat You, Portal 1. People said that this is an easy game, but when I got to like this one room where I have to get to the other side with the portal gun, I just lose it. And then we have the final game, which is Mario Party Superstars. I don't really consider this part of the backlog, but I'll probably count it since I played it in 2022, and I think it's just average. And that's pretty much my list of some of the best games I have played this year. It felt like I have played a bunch of different games, and I'm glad that I get the opportunity to replay certain ones like the Uncharted series and Kirby Star Allies, and also tried many different new games that I probably either hated or loved. And I'm glad you guys managed to make it to the end of the video, but I want to hear you guys' thoughts. Do you think I should continue making these gaming essays, or do you think I should just not do gaming content as a whole, as I just have bad opinions and bad video editing skills with these type of videos? Please be honest with me, and I'll try to I'll probably put your criticism into heart. And thank you guys for watching, and I have to get going. Bye.